BYUSN. We now welcome in ESPN college basketball analyst, insider, and expert Sean Farnham, friend of the program, who is going to have a great seat tonight for BYU and Oregon. And Sean, as a UCLA guy and a Pac-12 insider, can you give BYU some insight on how to beat the really good Ducks team tonight?
Listen, can I just start off with the fact that I'm really excited I'm in the building to call a game tonight. Like, it feels so good to be back out on the road and be able to watch these teams in person. To answer your question, listen, this is an Oregon Ducks team that has a lot of new parts to it, as always. I always say this, Dana Altman has worked the transfer portal long before the transfer portal was cool to work. And this year he's got three guys in particular. Davion Harmon played at Oklahoma. Quincy Guerrier, who played at Syracuse. Those two guys in particular have caused a lot of issues. And then you bring in a Jacob Young from Rutgers, who brings a defensive mindset. So you have three guys that are established double-digit scorers at Power 5 conferences and then are coming into Oregon to mix in with a Will Richardson, who I think personally could be the Pac-12 player of the year, and it's off to a sensational start once again. So they have scoring options. There's multiple guys out on the floor that can score the basketball. Like BYU, what you'll see, though, is because of, Richard being out, you have a lack of size and a lack of depth there. Well, N'Faly Dante is still out for Oregon from an injury a year ago. So they have a little bit of a lack of depth down low at the center position. So I think they're very similar in how they play. They're very similar in how they look to score, a lot of it being predicated upon their guards and their ability to make the defense shift, rotate, and then knock down wide open threes.
Sean, how do you think BYU's game against San Diego State, very aggressive, very good defensive team, very good rebounding team, beating them here, how did that prepare them for what they might see later tonight?
Listen, for me, I've learned more about BYU in this early season than I have about Oregon. And that's based on the fact that the two opponents that BYU has faced already will be in the NCAA tournament at the end of the yeyear. I'd be shocked if either one of Cleveland State or San Diego State weren't in the NCAA field. And there's a reason why, over the last two seasons, San Diego State, I believe, was 53-7. Matt Bradley will lead the Mountain West Conference most likely in scoring this year. And for him to only have 4 made field goals, what that tells me is there's an effort that has shifted and changed a little bit with BYU this year, and the focus being on the defensive end of the floor. I listened to Spencer during one of the games. I think it was the Cleveland State game, where he said that coach said they need to get stops, they need to get stops, they need to get stops, they need to get stops.
Yep.
And he said it, I think, 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. I'm paying attention to BYU TV. And, the truth of the matter is, for this team to be great, for this team to have a chance to win a conference championship, for this team to advance in the NCAA tournament, it is going to need to be a disruptive team at the defensive end. It doesn't need to be the best defensive team in the country, but it needs to be disruptive, and it needs to force their opponent to take shots that are lesser, higher percentage shots than what they would normally get out of their offense. And I think that's what I saw most about the San Diego State game, and I'm interested to see if they can be disruptive tonight on the defensive end of the floor against Oregon.
ESPN college basketball insider and analyst Sean Farnham is with us on BYU Sports Nation. Sean, let's focus specifically on BYU within the national standpoint and limelight. Some of your media colleagues, Jeff Goodman notably, has BYU number 17 in his poll. I think Andy Katz had BYU at number 28. BYU is receiving votes just outside the top 25. Are they a top 25 caliber team, or do you need to see some more?
No, they should have been in the top 25 this week. If I had a vote in the AP top 25, I would have put them in the top 25. Again, 2 wins against tournament quality teams. And when Selection Sunday comes and looking at seeding process for BYU, they'll say, okay, how many wins do you have against the field? Well, they've already got 2. If they get 1 tonight, that'll be 3 to start the season. So that's really impressive. And I credit Mark Pope for the aggressive scheduling. And while maybe Cleveland State doesn't have the national name that some other programs have, that was a team that took Houston to the brink last year in the NCAA tournament and returned everybody. I mean, that is a tough team. And then Brian Dutcher's squad at San Diego State, year in and year out, they are one of the more physical and best defensive teams in the country. So that's why that game was a little bit more of a grinder. I think this is a top 25 team. Do I think that they're top 15? I don't right now. Can they get there? Potentially. But I think right now they're somewhere between 15 and 25. I think they're at like 29 or 30 if you count, the teams after the ones receiving votes. So they're in the ballpark. I think all they have to do is continue to take care of business. They beat Oregon tonight. They'll be in the top 25 next week. if that indeed happens.
Let's get your take on this. This is a strategic scheduling game for both coaches to play each other in Portland, not Eugene and not Provo. And it's November. We haven't had Thanksgiving yet. But it seems to me in a game like this, the winner can win a lot and the loser doesn't lose very much. Just the fact that they played each other will benefit when the committee starts to look over their work.
Yeah, and I would go to what Chris Beard said after for the Texas head coach after they lost to Gonzaga over the weekend. He said, listen, no, basketball benefits from this game. We benefited from this game. Gonzaga benefited from this game. And I think the same can be said for the quality of game that we're going to see tonight. These are two NCAA tournament teams. This is a check in and check up. Check in. Let's see how we're doing. Check up. Where do we need to get better? And I think for both teams, regardless of who wins this game, both teams are going to approach it the same way and know that there's a ton that they can learn and grow from in the course of this game tonight that will help them as they move forward in their season. College basketball is crazy. We talk about undefeated teams, and obviously the Gonzaga Bulldogs and the WCC had a great run last year until they went to the national championship game and took their first loss of the year. There hasn't been an undefeated national champion since the 70s. There's a reason for that. It's hard. And so teams are going to take a loss. And tonight, maybe BYU takes a loss tonight. But in that loss, I promise you, they're going to learn a lot more that would allow them to be successful in the WCC. And if they win, by the way, it doesn't mean that they won the national championship. It means that there's still something they can learn and get better at to be able to get better for conference play and be able to hopefully bring a championship back to Provo, because I know that's what Mark Pope has talked about with me. My conversations leading up to the game is, listen, we haven't left our mark on the WCC yet. And our mark needs to be a championship. And they don't want to leave to go to the Big 12 without winning a conference championship. And obviously it's a steep hill once again to climb this year. It's no surprise who's right there standing in front of them. But it's going to be a great battle this year. And I think it's going to be a better battle than even what we've saw last year. Could be reminiscent of what we saw 2 years ago in the Marriott Center. That was a pretty special environment.
Mm-hmm. Sean, let's talk about the Big 12. How do you feel BYU in 2023 will fit in with what on paper over the past 5 years has been, what many experts say, the best basketball conference in America?
By Ken Palm standards, it has been the best conference in the country. And Ken Palm, for those of you who don't know, is a great guy that does analytics and breaks down the numbers. Very, very great basketball conference from top to bottom. And yeah, you're losing two brands in Oklahoma and Texas. But statistically speaking, with the teams and the programs that they brought in, that had you brought in those teams last year, BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, all of them would have been maintained that position of having the Big 12 be the number one ranked conference in the country. It's a step up. Here's the difference, right? When BYU plays Gonzaga, everybody knows it's a heavyweight fight, right? It's a main event, top card of UFC, whatever you're interested in combat sports world, it would be the main event. And when you go to the Big 12, every game becomes the main event. When you go to Kansas, when you go to Baylor, when you go to visit the Hilton Magic at Iowa State. So there's no games where you're like, okay, this is an easy one. A soft landing at the end of this game and we're going to win by 20. There aren't those games inside the Big 12. So that's going to be a change. I think what you're going to see, though, from Mark Pope and this coaching staff is a renewed effort to increase the talent pool in which they can go out and recruit. Colin Chandler is a prime example of that. The young man who committed last week, he's a star. He's a flat out star. And he is going to be a star at BYU. He's going to be a star inside the Big 12. And those are the type of players you need if you're going to try to compete with championships. But I mean, I close my eyes and I think, you look, BYU fans have given me a lot of grief over my excitement and my energy in that win against Gonzaga. I see it all the time, guys. I hear you. I understand. You guys are misconstruing everything. I've loved that environment. I've said it over and over again. It's the best environment I've covered in 20 years of covering basketball on the television market. So I close my eyes and I think, man, imagine when Kansas comes to town.
Oh, boy.
Imagine when Baylor comes to town. Imagine when Texas Tech, who's recently been in the Final Four, and I know they've gone through a coaching change, comes to town. How insane is that building going to be? I mean, it's going to be fantastic. And from a television perspective, from a broadcaster perspective, I love walking into environments that are electric and lit. And BYU has always had a great home court advantage. But when it comes to the Big 12, man, I think they're going to blow the roof off that place.
Sean Farnham calling the game tonight on ESPN, BYU and Oregon. Let's finish with BYU's current star, Alex Barcello, there is a calmness to him that we saw in the Cleveland State game and in the San Diego State game of just kind of biding his time, waiting for the moment, and then when they need a big shot, he sticks one and then another and another and then puts the game away. What do you think of Alex and this last year of his, and how good can he be this season?
I think he could be as good as he wants to be. I think, honorable mention All-American, third-team All-American, second-team All-American. Those are there in front of him. I don't think he's a first-team All-American. I think we have so much talent returning to college basketball this year. It'd be really tough for him to achieve at that level. But what I like about him is, to your point, is he's allowing the game to come to him. He's not forcing the issue. I thought at times last year that Alex Barcello tried too hard, and in particular in big games. Like he took on that the shouldering of I'm the leader of this team. And when things got tough in some of those games in the WCC, he was just trying a little bit too hard. He got a little too tense. I haven't seen that in the early stages of this season. What I've seen is a player that's very confident. Tejon Lucas and him are building a nice chemistry together. I think that's really important to Alex's success, is that Tejon has success as well at the guard position. He's got to shoot it better than obviously he has in the first couple of games in Tejon Lucas. But Alex Barcello has been great. And I expect in the big moment that he will be the guy that takes the big shot. I will expect that when the opponent goes on a run, that he is going to be the guy that steps up and knocks down that shot. And if he's able to do that all year long, I think that he's going to help lead BYU, more importantly than the individual accolades, would be back to the NCAA tournament and have a chance and an opportunity once again to advance. And I think that when you look at the last 3 years in particular for Mark Pope, whether it was getting them nationally ranked a couple of years back, I still believe that there was an NCAA tournament in 2020 that this BYU team would have at the very least been able to make the Sweet 16, easily could have made the Elite Eight, and could have been a player for the Final Four with as good as that team was playing down the stretch with Haas, Toulson, Childs. I love that team, and I love the toughness that they had at the defensive end of the floor. What I think most importantly for Alex Barcello has been his commitment to the defensive end so far. Taking a couple charges, I've seen that. He has to be the guy that gives this team that little edge at the defensive end, because if this team maintains the defensive awareness that they've shown so far in the first two games, I think it's going to be a really successful season for the Cougars. If they rely on their offense, which I think last year's team did a little bit too much at times and wasn't as tough and as physical as they need to be at the defensive end of the floor, well, then you're going to take some unexpected losses. But if you bring that defense every single night, it gives you a fighter's chance to find success. And so far, this team has had that fighter's chance and grinded through that game in particular against San Diego State when the offense wasn't as flowing as freely as it has in the past. And I think that's going to bode well for this team moving forward.
The extremely well-versed Sean Farnham bringing it on BYU Sports Nation. Great to have you on the show. We're looking forward to the call. Love to see you rocking the Coaches for Cancer hat too.
Yeah, well, I've always rocked this, but I got to know. Okay, what's the score on the 18th between the Cougs, the WCC champions in women's soccer, going down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to take on the Tide? What's the score? Do we got a prediction here?
Listen, Sean.
West Coast Mafia's got to come through here.
Yes. BYU averages more than 3.5 goals per game. I'm calling a 4-1 win on the road against Alabama. Let's go.
This is the Alabama that we want. This is the Alabama team that we want.
BYU wants Bama in soccer. Absolutely.
Let's go. It's going to be a great game.
Hey, great to have you,
It's been a great season for them.
Just do me one last favor. Make sure BYU doesn't face UCLA in the first round of the NCAA tournament this year, okay?
That doesn't work out.
Look, if they're playing in the first round of the NCAA tournament, I'm driving to Indianapolis personally to ask one question. What's wrong with you guys? There's no way that can happen.
Great stuff. All right, thanks, Sean. Great to talk to you.